Welcome back to the Vault of Glass, where the most fragile and beautiful stories are protected from the harsh light of reality. We explore the delicate balance between strength and vulnerability through our unique visual lens. Click subscribe now and enter the Chamber of Secrets.
I watched my daughter through the diner window, her notepad tucked under her arm, moving between tables like she'd been doing it her whole life. 22 years old, junior year at Ohio State's nursing program, and she still picked up weekend shifts at Patty's Kitchen on 5th Street to cover her textbooks and rent. The November wind was already bitter, the kind that gets into your coat no matter how well you button it, and I stood there for a moment longer than I should have, just watching her work. Her name is Meredith, my daughter, my whole world since her mother Claire passed from ovarian cancer when Meredith was 7. 15 years of the two of us figuring it out together, mostly by trial and error, mostly with whatever we had. I work as a civil engineer for the county. Decent salary, nothing spectacular, enough to keep the lights on, enough to help Meredith when she needed it, though she almost never asked. My phone buzzed. My older brother's name lit up the screen, Victor's name. You and Meredith still coming Thursday? Thanksgiving at the house. I typed back yes before I finished reading the message. Of course we were coming. We came every year. His next message took a few seconds longer than usual. Actually, Sandra was hoping to keep it a little more intimate this year. Client dinner situation. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. I stood there in the November cold and read that message 3 times. Meredith's welcome to come. But Sandra mentioned she might feel out of place. The Aldridges are going to be there. You know, the development people. Sandra wants the conversation to stay elevated. My jaw tightened. Sandra. My brother's wife of 6 years, the woman who'd grown up with a trust fund in Naperville and had never once let anyone forget it. Elevated conversation. I knew what that meant. What's wrong with Meredith? I typed. A pause. Long enough that I put the phone back in my pocket and then took it out again. Nothing's wrong with her. It's just that Sandra found out she waitresses at that diner on 5th. The Aldridges own 3 restaurant chains, Daniel. Sandra's worried they'll recognize her or something. They'll make things awkward. I looked back through the window. Meredith was laughing at something a regular had said. This older man who came in every Sunday and always ordered the same thing, 2 eggs over easy and black coffee. She had her mother's laugh, wide and unguarded, the kind you couldn't fake. We'll be there at 2, I typed, and I put the phone away. I didn't tell her that night. She came home after her shift, still in her uniform, made us both grilled cheese because she said she was tired of looking at food but knew I hadn't eaten. We sat at the kitchen table and she told me about a patient she'd shadowed in her clinical that week, a 60-year-old man who'd come in scared and left feeling better. And she said it like that was the best thing that had happened to her all month. It probably was. She'd bought a new blouse for Thanksgiving. Dark green, from the resale shop on Broad Street. She showed it to me when she got home from work Monday. Hung it on her closet door and stood back and looked at it like she was deciding something. Uncle Victor's house is always so nice at the holidays, she said. Remember last year Sandra had that whole catered cheese display? Like a charcuterie wall, practically. I remembered. Do you think she'll like the pie I'm making? I've remembered. Do you think she'll like the pie I'm making? I've been practicing the crust for 2 weeks. She had been. I'd eaten 3 test versions. She'll love it, I told her. We drove to Glenview on Thursday. Victor and Sandra had bought their house 4 years ago. One of those new builds in a gated subdivision. 5 bedrooms and a 3-car garage and a backyard designed by a landscaper they flew in from Scottsdale. Victor had done well in commercial real estate. Sandra's family money had done the rest. They made sure guests understood the distinction. We arrived 15 minutes early. I'd planned it that way. Wanted to help set up, show we were family and not just attendees. The driveway was lined with cars I recognized from commercials, a Range Rover, a slate gray Porsche SUV, something sleek and black that I didn't have a name for. I pulled my 8-year-old Chevy in behind the Porsche and Meredith grabbed her pie from the back seat, held it with both hands like it was something precious. We're early, she said. That's good, right? We can help. We walked to the front door. I rang the bell. Sandra opened it. She was dressed like she was going to a magazine shoot. Cream blazer, statement necklace, hair that looked effortless but wasn't. Her smile when she saw Meredith dropped about 10 degrees. Daniel, you're early. Not a greeting. An accounting. We thought we could help with setup. Everything's handled. We have a caterer. Her eyes moved to Meredith, to the resale shop blouse, to the pie wrapped carefully in foil. Victor's in the study. Why don't you go find him? Then, like it was an afterthought, Meredith, honey, would you mind waiting in the mudroom? We have some guests with food allergies and the restaurant smell. It's just in your clothes. It's nothing personal. The mudroom's heated. I'll have someone bring you something. I felt Meredith go still beside me. I showered this morning, she said. Quiet, steady. I changed clothes after my shift. Of course you did. Sandra's voice was warm in the way that ice can look warm through glass. But those smells, grease, fryer oil, they cling to you. You know how it is. It's just until the Aldridges arrive. Then everyone can mingle properly. The mudroom, Sandra repeated, and pointed toward the side hall like she was directing a delivery. It's fine, Dad, Meredith said low, before I could get a word out. I'll wait. Don't make it a thing. She walked away before I could stop her, holding her pie with both hands, heading down the side hall without looking back. Sandra watched her go and then turned to me with that same practiced smile. Victor's in the study. Second door, past the bar cart. I should have followed my daughter. I should have turned around right then and walked both of us back to the Chevy and driven home and ordered Chinese food and watched the parade on TV. I didn't. I told myself it was only for a few minutes. I told myself Victor would help. I walked into my brother's house and I went looking for him, and that was one of the worst decisions I've made as a father. Victor was on a call. He waved me in, mouth 1 minute. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk and looked at his walls, framed aerial photos of developments he'd worked on. Him and Sandra at some charity gala in the city, her in a gown, him with that slightly uncomfortable look he always gets when someone's taking his picture. His son from his first marriage, Cody, in a lacrosse uniform. No photos of Meredith, no photos of Claire, nothing from before Sandra. He hung up. Mike, good, you made it. Sandra put Meredith in the mudroom. He had the grace to look uncomfortable for approximately half a second. It's just until the Aldridges get settled. Sandra's been planning this dinner for 3 months. These people are looking at a 7-figure development deal. She's your niece, I know that. She drove 2 hours to bring Sandra a homemade pie. And that's really sweet. It is. But you have to understand the situation here. The Aldridges, they have their own restaurant group. If they find out Meredith works at a diner, she's a nursing student. She works at a diner to pay for her clinical rotations because the program doesn't cover the cost of equipment and her scrubs and the licensing exams. She has a 3.8 GPA. She got a commendation from her faculty advisor last semester for patient care. I know that. Then act like it. Victor rubbed the back of his neck. The same thing he used to do when we were kids, and he knew he was wrong about something but wasn't ready to say it. Where are the boys? I asked. Upstairs. Getting ready. Sandra hired a photographer for a family portrait before dinner. I left without another word. I walked through the living room where 10 people I didn't know were talking about the housing market and a ski trip to Bale, through the kitchen where the caterers were arranging things on platters that cost more per piece than my daughter's monthly grocery budget. Out the side door to the mudroom off the garage. It was heated, like Sandra had said. I'll give her that. 1 baseboard heater that ticked and hummed. A bench along one wall, the kind you sit on to take off your boots. A coat rack. A small shelf with a basket of decorative gourds that probably cost $30 each. Meredith sat on the bench with her pie in her lap. She'd eaten the edge off 1 slice. The foil was folded back carefully. Hey, Dad, she tried to smile. Mostly got there. How long have you been sitting in here? It's fine. 20 minutes maybe. I found a magazine. There was no magazine. She'd been sitting in the mudroom at my brother's house on Thanksgiving with a pie she'd spent 2 weeks practicing, alone, while the rest of the house drank wine and waited for the caterers to serve dinner. I crouched down in front of her. We're leaving. Dad, please. I don't want you to lose your relationship with Uncle Victor over me. Meredith. I mean it. He's your only family. You are my family. You are all the family I need. The rest of this is, I'm used to it. The words stopped me cold. Used to what? She looked at the gourds on the shelf instead of at me. Sandra's never liked me. Not since she and Uncle Victor got married. You know how at Christmas 3 years ago, she gave Cody that new gaming setup, and she gave me the Walmart gift basket with the lotion, the one with the cellophane and the fake ribbon? I remembered. I told myself it was just her not knowing Meredith's taste. Last Thanksgiving, I spilled cranberry sauce on the tablecloth. It was an accident. She made me help the caterers clean up, in front of everyone, like I was hired. Meredith, 2 summers ago at their 4th of July thing, I heard her tell the woman next to her that the reason I had to work was because she said because you hadn't planned properly, as a father. She said it like I wasn't 15 feet away. Each detail landed like something hitting the floor. 6 years. 6 years of this, and I've been sitting at the table eating Sandra's catered food and telling myself it wasn't that bad. Why didn't you tell me? She finally looked at me. Because Uncle Victor's your brother, and I knew if I said something you'd feel like you had to choose, and I didn't want to be the reason you lost him. He's the only one left. Your parents are gone. I didn't want to do that to you. I sat down on the bench beside her. She leaned her head against my shoulder the way she used to when she was small, and for a minute neither of us said anything. Just the heater ticking. Then I said, "Finish your pie." "What?" "Finish the piece you started. Then we're going back in there." "Dad, no. We are going to sit at that table," I said, "and we are going to hold our heads up because we have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, not one single thing." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she took another bite of pie. "This crust is really good," she said. "I know. I've eaten 3 of them." We waited about 10 more minutes. I watched through the small mudroom window as cars arrived, as people in expensive coats were greeted at the door with champagne flutes. A photographer set up near the fireplace. "Sandra came to get us. The Aldridges are here now. You can come in. Just please don't discuss anything work-related. Let the conversation flow naturally." I didn't answer. I followed her in, Meredith beside me. The living room was full. 30 people, maybe more, all dressed like the occasion mattered. They looked at us when we walked in. At my sport coat from Kohl's, at Meredith's resale shop blouse, at the pie she was still holding because there was nowhere to put it. I saw the assessments happening, fast and automatic, the way people decide things in the first 2 seconds. Victor appeared at my side. "Mike, come meet the Aldridges." He steered me toward a couple near the window. The man, Harrison Aldridge, was maybe 60, silver-haired, the kind of tan you get from actual outdoor time rather than a booth. His wife, Carol, was warm-eyed and immediately asked about the pie. "My daughter made it," I said, "from scratch. She's been perfecting the crust for 2 weeks. I love people who cook from scratch," Carol said, and meant it. I looked back at Meredith. Sandra had directed her toward a folding chair near the hallway, away from the main seating, a chair that had clearly been placed there as an afterthought, the way you put a chair somewhere for someone you expect to be temporary. Cody, my nephew, walked past Meredith without acknowledging her. He was 20, home from Arizona State, wearing a sweater that probably cost $200. His girlfriend stood beside him and they were whispering about something, and I saw them both glance toward Meredith and then back at each other. Dinner was announced. We moved to the dining room. Sandra had pulled out everything, the good china, the crystal, the centerpiece with actual fresh flowers. Place cards at every seat. I found mine toward the end of the table, found Meredith's next to mine, in the 2 seats closest to the kitchen door, the ones that would get bumped every time someone came through with a platter. I picked up both cards, moved us to 2 open seats in the middle of the table. Daniel. Sandra was beside me in seconds. "Those are reserved. Reserved for who? The Aldridges." "Then put them at the head. There's plenty of room." The seating was planned carefully. "This isn't. It was planned to put my daughter next to the kitchen door," I said, "so the caterers would bump her chair every time they came through." I know what it was planned for. We looked at each other. The table had gone quiet around us. She took the cards from my hand without another word and rearranged things with tight, precise movements. Dinner started. The food was extraordinary. I'll give Sandra that too. Course after course of things I didn't know the names of, served by people in matching black aprons. The conversation around me floated above my head. Second homes and private school admissions and whether the market in Palm Springs was peaking or still climbing. I checked on Meredith. She was eating, being polite, answering questions when someone asked. She looked composed in the way that cost something. Then Cody's girlfriend, I heard someone call her Tess, leaned across the table and said to no one in particular, Is it weird being at a dinner like this when you spend your days clearing tables? She was looking at Meredith when she said it. A few people laughed, the polite, small laugh of people who aren't sure if something is a joke. Meredith's face went still. I set my fork down. Victor spoke before I could. Tess, that's not appropriate. What? I'm just asking. It's probably surreal. No offense. Some offense, Victor said, and I looked at my brother, really looked at him. He was staring at Tess with an expression I hadn't seen on him in years. Something like the version of him I remembered before Sandra, before Glenview, before the Porsche and the development deals. Sandra put her hand on his arm. Let's not make this a dinner conversation. My niece is a nursing student, Victor said, and his voice had gotten quieter. The way voices do when they're not performing anymore. She works 30 hours a week to pay for her education. That's not something to make a joke out of. Victor, Sandra said. No. He pulled his arm back. I should have said this 3 hours ago. She shouldn't have been sitting in the mudroom in the first place. That was wrong. The table was very quiet. I stood up. Chair scraped the hardwood. Better choices, I said. That's what this is all about, right? Better choices. Sandra turned toward me. Her face had gone careful. My daughter works 30 hours a week while maintaining a 3.8 GPA in one of the hardest nursing programs in Ohio. She has spent 2 weeks perfecting a pie crust because she wanted to bring something she made herself to Thanksgiving, because that's what she was raised to think hospitality means. She bought her blouse at a resale shop, and she ironed it twice, and she came here because she thought this was family. I walked around the table to where Meredith was sitting, put my hands on the back of her chair. She's going to be a registered nurse. She's going to spend her career in rooms where people are scared and alone, and she is going to help them. Because she is kind and she is steady and she doesn't look at anyone and decide they're worth less based on where they work or how much their car cost. That is a harder thing to be than rich. Anyone in this room can inherit money. Not everyone can be the person my daughter is becoming. I looked at Sandra. She has never once been treated the way she deserved in your house. 6 years. I didn't see it because I didn't want to, and that's on me. But I see it now. Sandra stood. Her voice had gone cold and precise in that particular way she had. I want you to leave. We're leaving. And take that pie. I didn't ask for charity from people like you. I stopped. On the side table near the entrance, Sandra had set up a dessert display. 3-tiered trays of catered pastries, macarons and petit fours and things in little paper cups. In the center was an empty spot where she'd clearly intended to put a showpiece of some kind. I walked over to the display, picked up the middle tier, and set it on the floor. Carefully, then I turned to the table. The pie my daughter made is better than anything on that table, I said, and everyone here is going to know it was here, even if none of you are decent enough to deserve a slice. I put Meredith's pie in the center of the display where the showpiece would have gone. Then we left. Meredith started laughing before we reached the car. A real laugh. Not the kind she'd been performing inside. She pressed her hand over her mouth like she was trying to hold it in and couldn't. Dad, she said, you put the pie on the display. It belonged there. You're unhinged. Probably. We drove home, stopped at a Kroger and got a rotisserie chicken and a bag of stuffing mix and cranberry sauce from a can, which is honestly how I've always preferred it. We made dinner in our kitchen, just the two of us, and it was the best Thanksgiving meal I've had in years. Victor called the following Sunday. Not Sandra. Victor, I owe you an apology, he said. And I owe Meredith a bigger one. I didn't say anything. Waited. I've been telling myself for 6 years that keeping the peace was the same thing as doing right by my family. It's not. I knew what Sandra was. I knew how she treated Meredith, and I looked the other way because it was easier. That's not who I want to be. Victor, she and I are separating. I've been thinking about it for a while. Thursday was the last straw, but it wasn't just Thursday. There's been a lot of it. With Cody, with me, with the way she talks about people she considers beneath her. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching myself become someone who lets it happen. I leaned against the kitchen counter and thought about the brother who taught me to drive in an empty parking lot when I was 15, who sat with me at Claire's funeral and didn't try to say the right thing, just sat there, which was right. People make choices. Sometimes they make them badly and for a long time. The question is whether they eventually make a different one. Meredith's the one you need to talk to, I said. Not me. I'll get over it. She's the one who sat in that mudroom. I know. Can I call her? You can try. She might not answer. She answered. Because she has her mother's heart, which is the most generous thing I've ever seen in another person, and which I have spent 15 years trying not to take for granted. She listened to his apology with the phone on speaker while she was folding laundry on the couch. Asked him 2 questions. Said she needed some time, but that she wasn't going to write him off. Hung up and went back to folding. He sounded really sad, she said. He is. He should be. He is. He should be. He is. She folded a sweatshirt. Okay. I'm not ready to have Sunday dinners with him yet. But I'm not writing him off. That was enough. More than enough, honestly. The separation moved fast. By February, Victor had moved into a rental in Evanston, smaller than anything he'd lived in since his 20s, and called it the first place that felt like his in years. He started showing up to Meredith's winter recital for the nursing school fundraiser, which she hadn't expected him at and which made her eyes go wide when she saw him in the 3rd row. To a dinner the 3 of us had at a Thai place near her campus in March. Nothing fancy, plastic menus and water in paper cups, and the best pad see ew I've had outside of actual Thailand. He was different without Sandra. Quieter, but less guarded. He asked Meredith real questions and listened to the answers. He asked about her patients, about her program, about what kind of nursing she wanted to do. She told him she was thinking about pediatric oncology, that it was hard but that the kids needed someone steady, and she thought she could be that. He got a little choked up and didn't try to hide it. Your mom would be really proud of you, he told her. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand once. I know. I watched them and thought about Claire, about the 15 years since I lost her, about how she used to say that love wasn't the warm feeling. It was the choice you made on the hard days. I think she was right. I think she was right about most things. Meredith finished her junior year with a 3.9, got accepted to a competitive clinical rotation at Nationwide Children's Hospital starting in the fall, one of the best pediatric programs in the country. She called me from the parking lot at work when she found out, still in her apron, crying in the good way. She still works at Patty's Kitchen on weekends. She says she's going to keep working there until she graduates. She says it keeps her grounded. I believe her. Victor came over the night she got the acceptance letter. We ordered pizza. He brought the good wine, which none of us really drank, and sparkling water for Meredith because she had an early clinical the next morning. We sat on the back porch even though it was cold, wrapped in old coats, and Victor told stories about Meredith as a little kid that I'd forgotten. Things he'd been there for that I hadn't. The time she marched up to a bully on the playground and explained to him in careful, complete sentences why what he was doing was wrong, at age 9, and how the bully had just kind of stood there, not knowing what to do with that. She's always been like that, Victor said. I should have protected that instead of, I'm sorry. I keep coming back to it. You can stop apologizing and just keep showing up, Meredith told him. That's actually what I need. He nodded. He's been showing up. I think about Thanksgiving sometimes, about the mudroom and the folding chair and the catered pastries and the way Sandra said, people like you as we walked out the door. I think about my daughter sitting on that bench with her pie in her lap saying I'm used to it, like being treated as less than was just a weather condition she'd learned to dress for. I'm not used to it. I don't want her to be used to it. I want her to walk into every room she enters knowing that she earned her place there, every single time with her own hands and her own mind and her own character, and that there is no room on this earth that she is not good enough to be in. She already knows that, I think. She knew it before I had the sense to say it out loud. That's the part that gets me. She knew. She was protecting me. A 22-year-old kid in a resale shop blouse with a pie she'd spent 2 weeks on was sitting in a mudroom protecting her father from a hard conversation. I should have had that conversation 6 years ago. Stand up for your kids. Do it before they learn to sit quietly and wait it out. Do it before they tell you I'm used to it like it's a normal thing to say. Do it when it costs you something, because it will, and they will remember that you did. Meredith starts at Nationwide Children's in September. She's already nervous, already reading everything she can find about pediatric oncology protocols, already thinking about the kid she hasn't met yet. She'll be extraordinary. She already is. She just needed someone in her corner loud enough for the whole room to hear. I've been thinking about cause and effect a lot lately. Not in any cosmic sense, just the plain practical kind. The kind where you trace a line backward from where things ended up, and you can see, clearly, exactly where the line bent. Sandra spent 6 years treating Meredith like a guest who hadn't been properly invited. Small cuts, consistent enough to leave marks. A gas station gift basket with the price sticker still on. Making a 20-year-old girl clean a tablecloth in front of a room full of strangers. Seating a nursing student next to the kitchen door so the catering staff would bump her chair all night. None of it dramatic enough to confront directly. All of it adding up to something unmistakable. You don't fully belong here. And the line bent, eventually, because lines always do. Sandra didn't lose her marriage because of one bad Thanksgiving. She lost it because 6 years of that behavior revealed something about her character that Victor couldn't keep ignoring once he finally stopped looking away. The dinner didn't cause the separation. The dinner was just the moment the light hit the right angle, and he finally saw what had been there the whole time. That's how it usually works. People don't pay consequences for one bad act. They pay them for who they've been consistently, over time, once the accumulated weight of it gets heavy enough that no one can pretend it isn't there. Meredith sat in that mudroom for 20 minutes and never once asked me to go in there and say something. She protected me from it. A 22-year-old kid who waitresses on weekends and studies pediatric oncology protocols in her spare time decided that her comfort was less important than my relationship with my brother. She learned that from her mother, I think. Claire was the same way, always holding the door open for everyone else, always the last one to say she was hurting. I think about the nursing students who quit because it got too hard, the ones who couldn't hold up under the weight of what the job asks of you. The long shifts, the bad news, the patients who scare you because you can see in their eyes that they already know. Meredith has never once talked about quitting. She comes home tired in the way that means she gave everything she had, and then she folds laundry and asks how my day was. That is not an accident. That is what gets built when someone grows up understanding that hard work is not something to be embarrassed about. It's the only thing that's actually yours. No one can take it from you. No market crash, no trust fund dispute, no Sandra. What I should have done 6 years ago was look at the keychain with the price sticker and understand what it meant. I should have read it correctly the first time. I didn't. I told myself it was thoughtlessness, not contempt. I was wrong, and Meredith sat in a mudroom because I was wrong. That's the part I sit with. Not what I said at the dinner table. I don't regret a word of it. What I sit with is the years before that. The times I watched something happen and looked away because the alternative felt complicated. Because I wanted to believe the best of my brother's marriage, and it was easier to do that if I didn't look too closely at what was happening to my daughter right in front of me. Protecting your kids isn't just about the loud moments. It's about the small ones too. The $2.99 keychains, the mudrooms, the chairs next to the kitchen door. Those are the moments that tell your child what you actually think they're worth. Pay attention to them. Don't wait for the dinner table scene to figure out what you believe. Meredith starts at Nationwide Children's in September. She earned it. Not because of anything I did, because of who she chose to be. Every shift, every exam, every morning she got up and went back to it when she had every reason not to. I just tried to stay in her corner loud enough for her to hear me when it mattered. That's the only job. Stay in their corner. Show up. Don't look away.